Gemarah Berachot 46 Memvav. What we're going to study in Mitzvah Shem is the Birkat HaZimun. We continue with the situation that there are three people who gathered together and they ate. Now they need to make a decision who is going to do what. It's a lot of details involved, but I think it's not only interesting, but it also have a lot of practical halachot. An example, it was in ancient Persian, a certain order of people who sit around the table. Is a certain sitting order and a sitting honorees that gets the honor to lead the service of the Zimun. The concept of where the Birkat HaMazon begins when you have a Zimun or not, meaning if you have the decorum and you have the blessing of the Zimun, when you start and how you started. It's another discussion which is washing hand, do you have an honor or not, and it's more discussion over general honoring when it's come to traveling, when it's come to certain decorum of eating, and I think it's a fascinating daf page. Memvav 46, the top of the page. Rabbi Zeira Chalash. Rabbi Zeira turned ill. Rabbi Zeira, one of the greatest admirer, a Amoraic rabbi, living in Babylon, big part of his life, but then he ascended to Eretz Israel, and when he reached, it's a famous Gemarah that said that when he reached Eretz Israel, he made a 300 fast day, which again, we said it many times, we do not know if it means really 300 or it's just a language of expression. But when he get to Eretz Israel, he made 100 fast day, the Gemarah said, in order to forget what he studied in Babylon, which again we need to understand. Another 100 is a God-fearing man. He was one of his teachers is Rabbi Ilah, and he was sick, so he prayed for him. And another 100 days that he should enter the Olam Haba. There's another thing that the Gemarah said about him, that he went to again, it's hard for us to comprehend, but everything 30 days he went to inside a stove, meaning in those days they have a large stoves with the fire, and he wants to make sure that the fire cannot control him, because he holds that if a man is a God-fearing and have no sin, the fire will not control him. And the sages said, and the sages put their eyes upon him because it was something like crossing lines, and they said kabil kviye nechechu shokav, like part of his legs was burned. Anyway, now with that introduction you see a little further, but if you want to read the entire story, I encourage you to go to the Tractate Bava Metzia, Perek HaSocher HaPoalim, page 85a, and you can read the entire story. Rabbi Zeira Chalash Chalash. Rabbi Zeira turned to be ill. Legabe Rabbi Abahu. So Rabbi Abahu went to visit him. Kabil alei. So Rabbi Abahu accept upon himself, I matpach ketina charik sharei avidna yom tava lerabanan. So he basically said that if the thigh, they used to call him ketina charich shake. Ketina because he was a short. Rabbi Zera was short. Harik Shaki. It's like, as we said, at one of the times he went to the stove and he went burn in his thigh. So he said, if this guy, Rabbi Zera, this great rabbi, that they named him Katina, the small one, Harik Shaki, like he has his thigh burn, if he gets healed, I will make a big meal for the rabbis. That's a common statement in the Talmud. Amidah yom atava leRabbanan. If something happens, I'll make a big feast day for the sages. So, what happened? Itpah, Rabbi Zera, he turned and get well. So, what happened now? Now you see why it's so connected to our discussion. Avad, Rabbi Abahu, what did he do? He made a very big meal. Se'udata lekulu Rabbanan. He made a big sauda, a big meal, a big festive for the rabbis. Ki mata lemishrei. When it was about the time to begin the sauda, Amar le Rabbi Zera lishrelan mar. So Rabbi Abahu said to Rabbi Zera, give us the honor to lead the service. What's the leading of the service? So, the first one is what? You're washing hands and you do a motzi. Question. When you're washing hands, who is washing hands first? If you think that the Balabait, so he wash hands and needs to wait to everybody else to wash hands. If you tell me that the youngest guests need to wash hands and the last one is the Balabait, okay? So again, so what happened? The Balabait need to wait, the owner need to wait until everybody else washes hands. So how it works? So later, hopefully at the end of this shiur, we explain the difference between the Persian and others and how they do it. Anyway, here there is a discussion over the next stage, which is after everyone washed their hands. Now we need to know who is going to break the challah. Why? Here is the discussion. Rabbi Zera said to Amar le Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Abahu said to Rabbi Zera, Lishrelan mar, that you, since you got healed, you got better, and we make the Suda in your honor, we want you to do what? To break the challah, to break the bread. Amar lei, Rabbi Zera said to him, Lo savar mar lehad Rabbi Yochanan de Amar Ba'al Habayit botzea. No, I hold what we said earlier, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that who? The Ba'al Habayit, the one who pay for the meal, he is the one who should break the bread. Sharalahu. So Rabbi Abahu agreed, since he paid for the meal and everything, and he made the blessings, slice a piece of bread, etc. Beautiful. So they all ate the meal. Ki mata levaruchei. When they come a time for them to say the grace after meal, Amar lei, so he said, Rabbi Abahu said to Rabbi Zera, you great honorees, you know, you should do it. Usually the what? The Zimun, the Birkat Hamazon. Amar lei, Rabbi Zera said to him, Lo savar lamar lehad Ravuna, the min Bavel, the Amar botzea mevarech. Don't you remember what Ravuna said from Babylon, that what? That one who sliced the bread, the first honoree that sliced the bread, he is the one who should do the Birkat Hamazon. Ve'ihu keman svirale. So now the Gemarah elaborates on this discussion. And Rabbi Abahu, how he really holds. Ki had amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Ba'al Habayit botzea ve'oreach mevarech. Baal Habayit, meaning the one who paid, or the owner, or who won the host. So he is the one who sliced the bread, and all the guests, they say the Birkat Hamazon. So now the Gemarah explained why is that. So they said, Baal Habayit Botzea, the reason that the host should break the bread, Kedei sheyivtzeh be'ayin yafa, in order for him to slice the bread in the good eye, which means he break it in such a generous way so everyone get a nice slice. Ve'oreach mevarech, and the guest do Birkat Hamazon, Kedei sheyivarech Baal Habayit, since he enjoyed the meal, he should bless the one who paid, the host. Think about it. If the guest slice the bread, he never win. Why? Because if he slice a big piece, they said, oh, you're generous because of what? Because of the money that the owner paid. And if he slice a small piece, what they said, you're greedy. You ever enter a restaurant as they charge you for the tea? Or whatever, or for the water? So they say greedy. Versus when he finished and he satiated and he finished the meal, so now we want the guest, like all the Midrash of the guest of Avraham Avinu, to give a blessing to the host. Okay, now is the argument in the Tosefta. Just some point because it's important. תוספות לא סבר לה דאמר רבי הונא דמין בבל מיהו יש להשב הנטרי לישנק דרבי יוחנן כשבעל הבית מסב עמהם ודאי הוא בוצע ואורח ומברך, אבל כשאין בעל הבית מסב עמהם הגדול שבהם המוציא וגם הוא יברך ברכת המזון. So if the owner is with them, he will do it, but otherwise the most honorable person should do it. Now the Rashba brought a very interesting question, which is, who is the owner, Baal Habayit, of the Seuda? Trace a scenario. Mr. Reuven, he rent a hall for a meal. He rent a auditorium for a meal, right? Now, the Seuda, the meal, it's in honor of, let's say, of the mayor of the city. Now, who is the honoree? The mayor. Who is the one who paid? Reuven. So, do you go by the one who paid, or you go by the one who gets the honor? An example. When it's come to Seudat Chatan, Chatan is like the king, right? So, usually, who paid? The parents, the grandparents, paid for the party or for the meal. So, who should get the honor of do hamotzi? Who should do the honor of making the zimun? The parents or the chassan? Or you talk about bar mitzvah boy? We call him Chatan habar mitzvah, right? So, he didn't pay for the meal, the parents pay for the meal. So, it's a discussion. It's not so simple. But, if you see soon, there's also a discussion over what exactly the guests should make. What type of blessing the guest will make. So they said here, Mai mevarech, when the guest gets the blessing after meal, what exactly he made. So they said, Yehi ratzon, may it will be the will of God, shelo yevosh Baal Habayit, that there is no embarrassment, no shame on the owner. בעולם הזה in this world, ואל להיכלם בעולם הבא, and never humiliated in the world to come. ורבי, and Rabbi, מוסיף בדברים, he add to that. ויצלח מאוד בכל נכסיו, he should be successful in all of his possessions. And Rashi explained here that that's applied to properties, karkaot. He should be successful in all of his businesses. ויהיו נכסיו ונכסינו, that his business and as well as our businesses מוצלחים וקרובים לעיר. They should be successful and close by. Imagine if a guy needs to manage properties that there is in New Zealand, or they are in the other side in the west. It's a big headache versus if it's the next door. ואל ישלוט שטן לא במעשה ידיו ולא במעשה ידינו. There should not be any evil or any Satan involved in the handiwork, and also our handiwork. ואל יזדקר לו לפניו ולא לפנינו שום דבר הירו חטא ועבירה ועוון מעתה ועד עולם. That he should not involve in any sin from now to the end. Different in this between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. First, Rashi said here that when it's come to this blessing, it's a Rashi explained here that the blessing should be applied to a person's properties that close by, and basically the mechaber, the code said in the Reish Aleph in 201, he said that that's the minhag of Ashkenazim to mention all the Baal Habayit, all the honor, as an act of gratitude. However, there is a huge difference between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Some Sfaradim go by the Mechaber, which means they use the word Nechasav, like Rashi said, Karkaotav, meaning that that it's applied to the honor, and U Nechasenu, which means we're not only thanking the owner and praying for his success in his property, in his business, we also asking for our own property as well to be successful. And that's basically the Girsa, the way that the Rif and the Rosh mention as well. However, Ashkenazim, if you look at the Birkonim, you see that it's a little different. If you look carefully at the Birkonim, it's a difference between you saying it in a Sephardic way, Ashkenazic way. The Sephardic basically hold that the guest also should ask for himself as well. Ashkenazim divided, some of them have it that way, like the Hasidim, and some have it just blessing for the host, for the Baal Habayit. But the Mishnah Brura said something very interesting there. He said in Reish Aleph, Seif Katan Yudalet, and he said, I just give you the abbreviation, that that's apply only when there is a wine involved. Then you can say, you should say the Hiratzon of the guests. But the Shar Hatziyun there, he brought from the Magen Avraham, that it's all, he asked a question why it's depend on Kos Shel Bracha, on the wine. The bottom line is, these extra blessings, it's a question, when and how. There is one opinion, in very short, that said that that's apply when you use the wine, and you're involved with Birkat HaZimun, which we'll soon discuss at length. Or if is just a situation that one make a blessing, and within this there is dividedness, if you bless yourself as well, or you just make a blessing for the host who pay for the meal. So, in a few practical halachot, let me share with you what the Rambam said in Hilchot Berachot, chapter 7. and also you see it in Shulchan Aruch in 167, that basically the halacha is the host is breaking the bread, which means if you are going to someone else, and even the person who goes there is a great scholar or great honorable person, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the host will do it. Some hold that the honor should be the greatest among those who assemble, like the Magen Avraham. But in a very basic halacha, we go by the host. The other part is the Rambam said that in Berachot chapter 7, he said that ve'oreach mevarech, the guest recite the grace after meal, which means grace after meal is recited by the guest according to the way we mentioned in the Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Now, it's important to know that it's some type of dynamics because every case it's different, but in a very general term, when it's come to Birkat HaZimun, the first person who gets the Mayim Achronim, he is usually the person who's basically lead that part of the Zimun. Now the Gemarah asks a question: Ad heichan Birkat HaZimun? Ad heichan Birkat HaZimun? What's the issue here? If we go by Rashi said שצריכים להיות שלושה וכשהן שניים לא יאמרוה. The first condition is to have 3 people, 2 will not do ברכת הזימון. רב נחמן אמר עד נברך ורב ששת אמר עד הזן. Very important controversy. Rav Nachman said, רבותיי נברך, יהי שם השם מבורך מעתה ועד עולם, etc. נברך, either with the minion אלוקינו, if not, שאכלנו משלו. ברוך שאכלנו משלו וטובו חיינו. Up to that point, that's considering a ברכת הזימון by Rav Nachman. Rav Sheshet said no. It's up to the end of the first bracha. Baruch atah Hashem, azan et hakol, meaning from Rabotai Nevarech up to Baruch atah Hashem, azan et hakol. Rav Sheshet said that's considering a birkat hazimon. Okay? So, we have to elaborate on that. What does that mean? So, if you look at the Tosefta quote Rashi, and he said that only in Odelecha we're beginning the Birkat Hamazon. So Tosefta hold that according to Rav Sheshet, if a person sitting by himself or 2 people sit together, so what they do, if you go by the Rav Sheshet, they start with, if you go by the Rav Sheshet, the way that Rashi said, he said that they should start with Nodelecha, and according to Rashi, that's halacha. Now we need to know a very important klal in the Talmud. When there is a machloket, when is a controversy between these 2 giant sages, Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshet, we go by Rav Nachman in a certain section. He was the son-in-law of the Reish Galuta, so we said halacha kamo bedinei. In the dinim, in halachot, in the dinim, we go by him. But in Rav Sheshet, they said halacha be'isurei. We go by him in the isurim. So therefore, since Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meal, it's considering isurei. So therefore, the halacha is according to Rav Sheshet, and therefore, a yachid, an individual, should start the Birkat Hamazon by Nodelecha. Come Tosefta, and he said, Velo nehira. And I don't understand that, he said. He said, technically, you don't have 3 blessings here. Why? Because you have Hazan et ha'olam, Hazan et hakol. You have Nodelecha, Rachem Na Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei Barachmai V'Yerushalayim Amen. That's the end. So he said, individual have the obligation to do it. So he said, why we said וכאשר לרב ששת יאמר הזן זו ברכת הזימון. So he said, he disagreed with that, and he said דוודאי יחיד נמה מתחייב מהזן. That individual, he disagreed with Rashi, and individual should start from ברוך אתה השם לרגל ברכת המזון הזן את העולם, not from נודה לך. Right? So you see here the difference between Rashi and Tosefta, and it's crucial because soon you see all the involvement with halachot. Neima ketanai. So this machloket depends on machloket tanaim, but I see on your faces that we not fully comprehend the Tosefta, so give me another minute. I know it takes time, but I explain to you the discussion. Part of the Tosefta point of view is what we said yesterday, Ma'asim bechol yom. Pug chazi mai ima davar, which means you have to go out and see what the people have the minagim, how they hold minagim. Why? Because the way that they have the minagim, that's the shoresh, that's the cause for that minag. They see how people does things. Tosefta, he turned around the whole sugya, and he brought basically the foundation Gemarah we studied in a previous page in Memhei. What the Gemarah said, if you recall, 3 people sit together and they want to finish to make the bracha after meal. So what happened? 1 person is still eating, 2 already done and want to finish. What did the 3rd person needs to do? He needs to stop his meal and respond to their zimun. For how long he needs to stop? So this is a machloket between Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshet. According to Rav Nachman, where when he finished the birkat hazimun, right? Nevarech lokenu she'achalnu mishalo, baruch she'achalnu mishalo dvor chayinu. That's the end of birkat hazimun. That's the end. According to Rav Sheshet, until he hear them Baruch Atah Hashem Hazan et Hakol, then he repeats. So we said halacha ki Rav Sheshet b'isurei. He said in this sense we make halacha, we pasken according to the Tosefta. So in a case, if you remember, I think it was yesterday or day or before yesterday, someone asked me a question in regards to a situation like that, like you are still in the midst of a meal and you just need to respond to other 2 that finish their meal. So the answer is you have to wait until they finish Hazan et Hakol, and then you go back and you can eat your meal. The Mishnah Brura in Siman Reish in the chapter 200, he said, if the 3rd person doesn't want to eat bread, he wants to eat the fruits or mezonos, some type of cookies. So he said, according to Mishnah Brura, listen carefully, he said that the person should return and finish the meal, for example, fruits, okay? And then, when he needs to start Birkat Hamazon, where he start, according to Mishnah Brura? No delecha.
After Hazan et Hakol.
Why? He holds that is a concept called Shomea Keone. When you hear someone say a blessing, like you hear someone blowing the shofar. So the same as Minchat Chinuch said, that if you hear someone blowing the shofar, you basically exempt. You don't need to blow the shofar, you listen attentively. He has the kavanah to exempt you. You have the kavanah to listen the shofar. So even you didn't physically blow your own shofar, by listening to someone else, you're being exempt. You're basically part of the mitzvah. So since that 3rd person joined them, by joining them, what happened to him? He heard the bracha rishona, the first blessing. So Yatsa Yedei Chova, he fulfilled his obligation. Of what? Of bracha rishona. Why? Because since the bracha rishona Hazan et Haolam, that composed by Moshe Rabbeinu, is the oraita, is from the Torah. So Mishnah Brura ruled lahalacha that if you are the third person and you go back and you eat your cookies or cakes or fruit, and whenever you need to go back and do Birkat Hamazon for yourself, you should start with Nodeh Lecha. I don't think that you guys know or heard about it. I think it's the first time, right? The way I look at your faces. Now, back to our Rashi and Tosfot. So when we have the discussion, Ad Eichan Birkat Hazimun, so when we have the discussion for how long is the Birkat Hazimun, according to Rashi, for how long they have the three, how long they have to hold these three. In other words, the third person, how long he needs to wait, right? According to Tosfot, one that need to stop his meal in order to help the other two, in order to join, or in order to fulfill his obligation to join them with the zimun. So since we said halacha ki Rav Sheshet b'isurei, so therefore we pass according to the Tosfot and we start with Nodeh Lecha. Back to the Gemarah. So the Gemarah asks a question, Neima ketanai, we should say that this is depend on another machloket, which is Tanaic dispute. What's the dispute? The Tanai Chada, because one Braita said Birkat Hamazon Shnaim Ushlosha, and Rashi explained Birkat Hamazon Shtaim Veshalosh, which is they have here a different language. There is a Zachar and a Keva. According to Rashi, it's a male language, which means that it's when you talk about Berachot, you use a Lashon Zachar. According to Tosfot, it's Lashon Keva, and that's the way the Bach said, but that's a side note. So Rashi said, how many brachos the one individual need to say? Shalosh. And Shtayim b'Shalosh. One Braita said is 2 and 3, and another one said that it's 3 and 4. What does that mean, 3 and 4? If you look at the blessings, so you have Hazan et Haolam, you have Nodeh Lecha, you have Rachemna, Uvnei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. The rest, Atov HaMetiv, it's much later. So either you said that if you incorporate the first one as part of the Zimun, so it's basically 2 and 3, or if you not incorporate, it's 3 and 4. Svarua, so the student of the yeshiva, what they understand? Dechule alma hatov ve'ametiv lav doraita hi. That the last blessing after you have Uvnei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Hakel Avinu Malkeinu Etzeru Etzeru, it's called Hatov HaMetiv. It has no biblical origin. Why? Because you know that story happened in the Yavne, by the sages of the Yavne, when it's the city of Beitar, it was a mass murder of the city of Beitar. So they are very, very thankful for several things, that it was such a long period, yet the body does not carry any smell, any odor, which usually the body after a certain time carry a certain odor. Number 2 is Hametiv, that they were able to bury those people who were dead, a large amount. So they institute that blessing. So what you see, that this bracha revit, that's the fourth blessing, it's not biblical. Lav deoraitai. Why? Because by the Torah you're going to say that Hazan, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the biblical. Then Nodeh Lecha, Ve'al HaKol, it's Yoshua. Rachemna, David HaMelech, Uvnei Yerushalayim, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. All of that, quote unquote, is a biblical, Ve'achalta ve'savata u'berachta, it's a biblical obligation. So, therefore, he says, Ma'ilav be'aka miflegei, man damar 2 ו3 כסבר עד הזן, ומן damar 3 ו4 כסבר עד נברך. Which means, if you are individual, so you said Nodeh Lecha and Rachem. So one hold that the 3, meaning the one who make the zimun, and then you have 1, 2, and 3. And the other one hold that the 3 and 4, which means the one who make the zimun, it's up to Hazan et Haolam. In individual Hazan Node and Rachem, which means the Mezamen said the one who make the zimun who said the Rabota and Nevorech, which is a Doraita, and the Gemarah rejected and said no. Rav Nachman metzarech letamei, Rav Sheshem metares letamei. So Tosefta explains that again, since zimun is Doraita, Rashi said that Yachid Mevorech, one individual make Hazan et Haolam the way that Rav Sheshet said. Tosefta said that the whole discussion is, I give you the abbreviation of Tosefta, how long he needs to wait until he joined the Suda in order to say Amen for the Birkat Zimun. What is the 2, 3, and 3, 4? So here we need to elaborate a little bit so we fully understand the further discussion on 2, 3, and 3 and 4. Those days they do not have a prayer book. It wasn't Sidurim in a Talmudic time. So not every single one know the formula by heart of grace after meal. If you go even in nowadays, the Temanim, the Yemenite communities, some of them go by the way the Gemarah said, which is the way that the Rambam hold, that one person make the blessing for everyone else and everyone else hear him, like we explained in the blowing the shofar, right? So if you have one person that make it out loud, and you have the people who are educated, or you have the Siddur, so it's not a problem. But if people are not educated and you don't have a Siddur, so what happened? You have one person that he is Baki, that he is erudite, and you divided it. So you have the first guy, he knows very well the Hazan et Haolam, he is doing the first one. Then the second one, do the second, etc., etc. You divided it. But no one can do a half of a bracha, right? So what happened is that sometimes it's 2 or 3, which means sometimes the first person do zimun until nodelecha, that's the first fellow, and then nodelecha will be the second one who know it by heart, and then the third one is the one who said rachemna. However, individually, when you don't have a zimun, so you have another blessing which is 4. Okay, so now you see the Gemarah. Everyone who hold that up to the word nevarech. Man damar 3 ו-4 shafir. One who said that 3 and 4 we understand. Man damar 2 ו-3 ha b'birkat po'alim askinan. So again, the Gemarah said that it's not necessary to say that way because in several brighter that contradicted each other. Rav Nachman said that Hazan et Haolam, it's part of the Birkat Hamazon, and therefore when you have a Zimun, you have to have 4. If you don't have Zimun, 3. As an example, so they're bringing Birkat Po'alim. What is the Birkat Po'alim? Birkat Po'alim meaning when you have a situation that you own a business, and you have people who works for you. Imagine if you own a business and you have like 200 people, 200 employees, Jewish employees that work for you. So the Gemarah said earlier in Tetzaim, in page 16a, the Gemarah said there that you have to be very careful because the Baal HaBayit, he is paying for your time. So if you need to go to daven mincha, there is no other way around. You have to go and daven mincha. Remember that. But if it's just sitting in a long meal or sitting and make a long blessing, someone else paying for that, paying for your precious time. So you should be considerate over the Baal HaBayit. So therefore, the employees need to rush, and you cannot squeeze in the blessing. So so the first bracha you cannot make it short because it's doraita, right? And if you look carefully at the Tosefta, I urge you to read later the Tosefta in Tetzayin Amud Aleph, the bottom of the page. In that Tosefta 16, he described that the sages has the power la'akor davar min Torah, because the employee, the poalim, are so occupied or preoccupied with the job and they need to rush back to the job. So that take precedence, supersede anything else. So what do? The first blessing is from the Torah. You cannot make it short. But then, no delecha and rachem na, and it's all speak about binyan Eretz Israel, right? Building Eretz Israel. So you can metzamtzim, you can just combine it and make it a brief to one bracha. So if you have a zimun, there are 3. If you don't have, there are 2. Rav Sheshet hold that up to Nodeh, it's a 2 and 3, which means you have the zimun, and then you said Hazan and Nodeh and Rachem. If you don't have a zimun, so then you combine, you do the Nodeh and Rachem. Now, with that in mind, Atov Ma'ametiv, he thought that it's Deoraita, it's like a biblical. So here, what they said here, the Amar פותח באזן וכולל בוני ירושלים בברכת הארץ, and he combined it, he make it short with ברכת הארץ, okay? And רב ששת מתרץ לטעמי. What's Rav Sheshet respond? He says, דכולי עלמא עד הזן. Everyone hold that up to הזן את העולם. מאן דאמר 2 ו3 שפיר. One is said that 2 and 3, we understand, well understood. ומאן דאמר 3 ו4, כסבר הטוב והמיטיב דאורייתא. So one that said that 3 and 4, he hold that הטוב והמיטיב, it's also biblical obligation. אמר רב יוסף, תדע. You should know, no. The הטוב והמיטיב לאו דאורייתא. You cannot tell me that the blessing of הטוב והמיטיב, which much later, it's a biblical origin. Why? שהרי פועלים מוקרים אותה. And that's very, very interesting statement. What does that mean? שהרי פועלים קוראים אותה? So it's a very beautiful Rabbi Akiva Iger. Rabbi Akiva Iger brought here the Tosefta and the Tosefta in the Tetzaim. In page 16 he said, since it's Sheva al Ta'aseh, and the sages have the ability to overrule the Oraita when it's come to the time of Baal Habayit. So therefore, if you tell me that the laborer deleted, so it means that the that it's not biblical, because the sages have the ability to just limit it, to delete it, to take it out, and to say finish, go back to work. So it can be the Oraita. That's Rabbi Akiva Iger's statement. Anyway, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Mata Mishmei derav, Teida, you should know, דעתו והמיטיב לאו דאורייתא. That's the blessing after ובני ירושלים. Why? שהרי, he has a different rationale. He said, שהרי פותח בה בברוך ואין חותם בה בברוך. כדתניא, as we learn. כל הברכות, all the blessing, פותח בהם בברוך וחותם בהם בברוך. All the blessing, you start ברוך אתה השם הזן את העולם, and you finish ברוך אתה השם הזן את הכל. So you start with Baruch and you end with Baruch. חוץ, excluding for what? בברכת הפירות ובברכת המצוות. The blessing of the fruits and blessing over the mitzvot. So you see here the Tosefta elaborate on that. In a second we'll go to the Tosefta here. It's a fascinating Tosefta. וברכה סמוכה לחברתה, which means again a blessing that attached to another one. Soon I share with you some example. וברכה אחרונה שבקריאת שמע, the last ברכה of שמע, יש מהם שפותח בהן בברוך ואין בברוך ואין חותם בברוך, but you don't finish with the word ברוך. ויש מהם שחותם בברוך ואין פותח בברוך. Okay, so the Tosefta here brought us a long list. He said that, for example, if you take bracha smucha lechavarta, you have the Shema, and you have at the end of Hashem Elokechem Emet. For example, in the evening you said Emet ve'emunah, etc., etc. Right? So you don't have Baruch at the end. Why? Because it's samuch, is nismach le'avar rabba. Now you may say, what about Shema Yisrael in between? So it's not considering a chatzitza, it's not in between, because you start with Baruch and you don't finish with Baruch. Okay, so that's one. The Tosefta at the very bottom of Memvav Amud Aleph 46a, he said a list of Berachot Ktsarot, that one is attached to the others. He brought the Mechaber, we add here the Mechaber in Siman Memchet in the Shulchan Aruch 48, who said that, for example, in those days, so how it works in the Talmudic times. Talmudic times, you said, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Natano Anoten Lasech V'Bina. You give the rooster the wisdom. How you do that? You hear in the morning the rooster, so you make the blessing. Then you walk out of the bed, you see the shirt, you put the shirt, you said the Malbish Arumim. Then you tight your knot, you said the blessing, right? Each part connected to the order we have. Like some have the idea that Oter Yisrael Betifara, Oter Yisrael Betifara, it is what? Tefillin, etc. So if you look at the Birkat Torah, then you have Yishtabach. So how come in Yishtabach you don't say Baruch Ata Hashem? You just said Yishtabach at the end. Kel Melech Gadol Batishbachot. Why? Because they said that it's all Psuke de Zimra, it's all preliminary service. That's, by the way, the reason why we're not allowed to speak doing Psuke de Zimra, because it's one connected to the bracha. You started the bracha at the very beginning, you ended at the end of Yishtabach, and in between it's considering one core of bracha. The same with Halel, Ya'alelucha. So it's Samuch lechaverto. So you finish Baruch Ata Hashem Melech Mulal Batishbachot. But in general term, as a principle, each bracha will have beginning and end. So now we see the Gemarah asks, Ve'atov ve'amitiv poteach bebaruch ve'ein chotem bebaruch. If you look at the Atov ve'amitiv, so he said Baruch Ata Hashem Kel Avinu Malkeinu Adirenu etc. etc. And you don't have a Baruch Ata Hashem at the end, right? U'eitiv, u'meitiv, etc. U'gmalanu, there's no Baruch at the end. So he said, Michlal de bracha bifnei atzmai. So since it does not begin with this clause, so you may say that Atov HaMetiv, it's independent bracha. ואמר רב נחמן בר יצחק תדע, רב נחמן בר יצחק tells us that you should know that הטוב המטיב לאו דאורייתא, that is not in the biblical origin. Why? שהרי עוקרים אותה בבית האבל. מה הם אומרים בבית האבל? In the house of mourning, what they said, ברוך הטוב והמטיב. רבי עקיבא אומר ברוך דיין האמת, blessed you God who is a true judge. So the Gemara asks, הטוב והמטיב אין דיין האמת? לא. They said הטוב והמטיב and they don't say the true judge, אלא אימה אף הטוב והמטיב. You add also הטוב והמטיב in addition to the דיין האמת, to the true judge. So the Tosefta here tells us, והאם תאמר בעמי פותחת בברוך ולא סמוכה לחברתה היא. So how come they start with the Baruch? It's attached to the previous blessing. So Tosefta said, ויש לומר דנתקנה בפני עצמאי, that it was a decree independently because of ביתה. So why you don't have the blessing afterward? So you should know what here the Tosefta said and others said, that again, running out of time, just give you the abbreviation. It's the idea that all the shilushim, you said, hu heitiv, hu meitiv, hu yetiv, hu gmalanu, gomlenu, yigmelenu, past, present, future, further, that's takanot mucharot, that's something that made much later. Originally speaking, it was a short blessing of Atov HaMeitiv. Baruch Ata Hashem, a very short blessing. That was the original. Now, in the house of mourners, you do Atov HaMeitiv. Rabbi Akiva all that it's Dayan HaEmet. So the Gemarah elaborated on that and said, Mar Zutra Ikla Levei Ravashi. Rav Zuta, he came to the house of Ravashi, and Itra Beimilta. unfortunately, it happened that Rav Ashi, one of his 7 relatives, died and he was mourning. Patach uvarich atov ha'metiv. He began with the blessing of the atov ha'metiv. God is good and comfort good. And then he had Kel emet, God is a true judge. Dayan emet, a true God, true judge. Sorry. Shofet betzedek, God is a true judge, judge with righteousness. Lokeach b'mishpat, lokeach b'mishpat, meaning that he's taking always with justice. Tosefot not really agree with that, because he brought other Gemarahs that said that there are situations that God take it as we said Yisurim shel Ahava, not necessarily that someone committed a sin, but God can, it's called met belo avon, that someone died without sin, that God took him because they take him. So it's, if you look at Shulchan Aruch Yoreh Deah Shin Ayin Tet 379, so you see there the entire nusach, which is a very different from one place to another. Even between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, it's a different what they said. But anyway, v'shalit bo lamo la'asot bo kirtzono, that God is controlling the world to do what He wish. Ki chol drachav mishpat, because all His way is true. She'akol shelo, since all is His. Ve'anachnu amo v'avadav, that we are His servant. ובכל אנחנו חייבים להודות לו לברכות, that we are obligated to thank him for everything. גודר פרצות בישראל, God mend the breaches within Israel. הוא יגדור, God should mend את הפרצה הזאת, this breach, בישראל לחיים. So if you look at the Mechaber and Shulchan Aruch, he rules that that's the Nusach in Beit HaOvel. That's the language we should say in the house of mourners. If you ask me a question, so how come we don't do that? So it's a different opinion. If you go by the Shach, he said that that's incorporated with the Birkat Hamazon. But many things we don't do exactly Shulchan Aruch for all kind of practical reasons. But if you go by the Mechaber, that's part of the House of Mourners prayer. Le'echanu chozer. So Rashi said here, Mi shenitztaref lazimun. Okay, we back to our question. Since the guy, the third person, joined all the others in a zimun, now he, where in Birkat Hamazon, he need to return when he finishes his own meal. Rav Zvid משמי דאביי אמר חוזר לראש ורבנן אמרי למקום שפסק. Rav Zvid said you need to return to the beginning of Birkat Hamazon, and Rabbanan said whatever, which means the nodeh lecha, the blessing of the land. So Tosfot said here, again we're running out of time, just in short, he said מקום שפסק is ברוך שאכלנו משלו. That's the spot, right after that, that's the spot he needs to, but והלכת למקום שפסק, so we basically not post it according to Rashi, we go by the way that we mentioned here, for like Tosfot, that he needs to start from where?
Where he left off.
From the Hazanet HaOlam.
Oh, Hazanet
not
HaOlam.
from where he left off, but Hazanet HaOlam from the beginning, that's the way Tosfot said. Omar לריש גלותא לרב ששת, ריש גלותא, the head administrator of the exile, he said to רב ששת, אף על גב דרבנן קשיש שעתים, even your great elderly scholar sages, פרסאי בצורכי סעודה בקיא מן האיכות. The Persian are more learned, more erudite than you. They're more proficient. How? So here it goes to details. בזמן שהן שתי מיטות, גדול מיסב בראש, ושני לא למעלה ממנו. ובזמן שהם שלוש, גדול מיסב באמצע, שני לא למעלה ממנו, שלישי לא למטה ממנו. Beautiful. The Persian custom is that the senior he's sitting at the top center, and then the second is on his right, and then the senior, the other senior sitting next to him on the bottom, one at the top senior, one at the bottom, and then the second it's on the one left, and the third is on his right. That's the Persian custom. The Jewish customs, it's that the senior is on the right, the second is on his left, and then the second row you have the senior at the middle, and then the second on his right, and the third on the left. If you go to the Hasidic rabbis, so the Rebbe is not sitting at the top of the table, the Rebbe is sitting at the center, and then you go by the seniority and the level of learned, go from the center and onward, the second, the third. Amar li v'chibaye ishta'uhe ba'adei. But what's the proper way to do it is the most important person, right? He need to be the second to speak, to respond or to have a discussion. Metaritz tirutze v'yativu mishta'e be'adei. That he like have a discussion. He sit next and he talk to him. That's the decorum of the sitting. In those days it was decorum of reclining. Amar leishane parsae. The Persian are different. Why? Because they the chavele b'machog. They have like a signal, like a hint way to have their own discussion. They are very sophisticated and they have a way to communicate in a certain signals between them. Okay, so מים ראשונים, מהיכן מתחילים? So when it's come to wash hands, who is the first? So now we need to finalize all the points. Who is the first, who is the second? So when it's come to the first washing hands, Amar le min hagadol, you should start with the prominent one. So Rav Sheshet asked a question, Yeshev gadol v'yishmor yadav ad shnotim kulam? You're expecting the most prominent person to sit and wait after he wash his hand that everyone will finish? Amar le le'altar maitu takka kamei. That right after he wash his hand, they bring a table before him, so he can start eating, and then they follow him. I must say that there is a difference between my father, mit 120, to my late father-in-law. My father has the minhag to wash his hand first and then to wait for everyone. My late father-in-law was also Rabbi Rashi. It's the head rabbi of the Shomron, and was a giant Talmid Chacham. He used to wash hand the last. I figure out personally that was because he have 11 kids, and many of them were very little in those days. I'm speaking 27 years ago. So he basically didn't want the children to shop around and be impatient. Therefore, he waiting for them, and then quickly he wash his hand and can do a motzi. Anyway, מים אחרונים, the end of the meal. מהיכן מתחילים, from whom you start. אמר לי מן הקטן. The Reish Galuta said to him, from the less prominent. So they said again, וגדול יתיב וידיו מזוהמות על שנוטלים כולם. So you tell me that the most prominent person will sit and wait his hand until everyone else will wash? אמר לי לא מסלקי תקה מקמי עד נמתי מיה לגבי. They don't remove the table with the food from before him until the water reached him, which means basically he can continue eating, and while others wash their hands, and he doesn't need to have yadayim mezoamot, the solid hands. So Amar Rav Sheshet respond to Reish Galuta, Anna matnita yadana. The Tanya, כיצד סדר הסיבה? בזמן שהם 2 מיטות גדול בסדר מראש ושני לו למטה ממנו, בזמן שהם 3 מיטות גדול בסדר מראש שני לו למעלה ממנו, שלישי לו למטה ממנו. So as we explained earlier, that's the order of who is second with the third, etc. מים הראשונים מתחילים מן הגדול. The first washing hands go by the most prominent. מים אחרונים, בזמן שהם 5, it depends how many, with the מים אחרונים. בזמן שהם 5, when there are 5 people, מתחילים מן הגדול. They start with the most prominent. או בזמן שהם 100, for example, when they have like 100 people, מתחילים מן הקטן עד שמגיעים אצל 5, they start with the younger one, or the least prominent, till they go to the 5, וחוזרים ומתחילים מן הגדול, and they go back, begin from the most prominent, ולמקום שמים אחרונים חוזרים, לשם ברכה חוזרת. The place where the water follow the meal, so they go to the final 5 people. מסייע לרב דאמר רב חייא ברש"י אמר רב, כל הנוטה ידיו באחרונה הוא מזומן לברכה. He hold that the one who washes his hand first at the end of the group's washing, which is whoever is the first of the final of the 5, he is the one who's designated to do ברכת המזון. He is speaking about מים אחרון. רב ורבי חייא ויתווה בסעודת הקמא דרבי, they sit in the middle of the rabbi, אמר לרבי לרב, קום משי ידך. This is exactly what we study in page 43, Men Gimel. The same sugya. Chazek meratet. So this is his student. He was shaking. Remember, the Rashi said it's 2 reasons why he was shaking. Either he thought that he is angry at him, etc. Amar li bar pachte. No, it's you're a son of a noble man. No, I am b'virka mezona ka'amar lach. He won't prepare to do the Birkat Hamazon, which means we have here a rule, a klal, that the smallest honor the oldest. Now you see how it applies. Setanu Rabbanan, en mechabdin, lo bedrachim, velo bigsharim, velo beyadayim mezoamot. So, just give it the beginning of the sugya we're going to study tomorrow. Usually, the katan mechabed gadol, the youngest, needs to honor the old. But there are certain situations that is no din kedima, you don't need to honor. When is it? So, for example, they said when they're traveling on the road. So the Meiri explained, if you honor people on the road, example, in those days, they're riding a donkeys, and you get stuck on the road. So the one donkey passed the others. It makes no sense. But you see the Tosefta said on the very bottom of the page, he said, the only time that it's applied, he said, אבל אם כל אחד ילך דרכו וגרו זה בזה וראה בהם דרך למקום אחד הם מכבדים. So Tosefta basically said that if they go together, they left together, then it's relevant to give an honor to some. Like in those days, one donkey's, one leading, riding the donkey should be the first, etc. But other than that, it's take too much time and it's too much involvement with it. Or in a gsharim, you go over bridges. So the Meiri explained that you go over the bridges is dangerous because, God forbid, someone can fall and it's take chances. So you don't do this honor. And the last one is velo beyadayim mezoamot. Why? Because there is a concept that we call sakana. It's a dangerous melach zdomit. Because imagine that you take these hands, that it's a soiled hand, and you can touch, for example, the eyes, right? Dangerous. So you don't have this honor because the one who touched it, the Baim Achronim, he is the one who's doing the bracha because it's no din kedima. So here Rashi explained beautifully in the end that he said velo biyadayim mezoamat, top of the page 47, bentilat Maim Achronim, because in Maim Achronim, since it's a salty hand, etc., so you don't give an honor, so just whoever is the first, he should do it. So let me wrap it up in 1 minute with a few halachot that we studied today. We study first of all Bal Habayit Botzea, that the head of the table is like and the Oreach is the one who do the grace after meal. Then we also study Adeichan Birkat Hazimun, that we explain that what the Shulchan Aruch said in the Rambam. He said that until where the Zimun blessing extend, if one interrupt his meal from Zimun with the other eating, so basically we go by the opinion of Rab Nachman. He need to wait until they said the Zimun, and then he participate with them. In other words, if you are eating and the other two are about to finish the meal, you have to stop and you have to join them. But then when you return, so here you see the opinion mentioned here that you need to return to the beginning of the bracha. And also we learn about Birkat Hamazon Shnayim Ushlosha, which means the halacha is according to the Tosefta, that if three people who are ate together and each knows only one of the blessings, so each recite the blessing that he knows. However, one who knows only part of the blessing may not recite it. So just also Shulchan Aruch in 194. In regard to a mourner, so the grace after meal for a mourner, in the house of mourner we add the fourth blessing, God who is a true judge, etc. So that's the Marzutra, and it's also in Yoredea 374. They mention that. Now, in regard to Mayim Rishonim and Mayim Achronim, the first water, so we said that that's the Bach and the Taz, all that the greatest person presented to wash his hands with the first water first. So, and Mayim Achronim, in the final water, if there are 5 or fewer people, so the individual reciting grace after meal wash first. If there are more than 5 people, they begin from the least significant person present and wash in order so in which they are seated. But one does not defer to the other until only 5 remain who did not yet wash their hands. And when only 5 people remain, the person reciting grace after meal is the first among them to wash his hand. And the last halacha, we said that we don't honor, we don't show a deference, or not an honor if it's if you're travelers or etc. So you don't the deference is only shown to a greatest individual by allowing him, for example, to enter first. You go to a house, you have a doorway first, the mezuzah, so you give this person first. But if you're a traveler, or if it's a yadayim mezoamot, if it's the dirty hand, so you don't you have the obligation to honor someone. You just go by the first one who did the Mayim Achronim.